Hello, it's Ruth Marie Hamilton. I'm going to be reading to you today from my mum's book, The Britwhistles Win a Prize by Wendy Hamilton. Let us begin. Myrtle, unaware of the war between Alfred and Nellie, was having a nice time at the Patchwork Club. It had been awkward at first, but once Mrs. Grundy had looked her over and given a nod, the ladies became welcoming. Was there a particular quilt you wanted to make, they asked. I want to make something cheerful, suitable for the grandchildren, Myrtle said, turning the pages of a quilting magazine thoughtfully. Do they live near? Asked a nervous woman called Millicent Mabel. No, but now that we live in the country, I'm hoping they will come and stay with us. Their parents work and a nanny looks after them during the holidays. One of the reasons we bought the house is because it has a wonderful garden for the children to play in. That's nice. What age are they? Sally's 7 and Peter's 6. If you want camp beds, Molly has a sale on them at the moment, said Mrs. Moody. Myrtle's hand flew to her mouth and she shook her head. Oh, no, Alfred's building the beds. We want everything in the room to be special. That's why I want to make quilts, she bit her lip uncertainly. What colour shall I make them? Pink for the girl, said Mrs. Grundy. Her nose and eyebrows were lifted and her closed eyelids fluttered strangely. The ladies of the club glanced at her nervously. Sally doesn't like Myrtle started to say. Edna Golding nudged her sharply in her elbow. Pink is a marvellous colour for little girls, she said loudly. All the ladies nodded their heads and babbled loudly about pink being the only colour. I think red and green would be cheerful, whispered Millicent Mabel behind her hand. Myrtle thought about the red shell bucket and nodded. Mrs. Grundy had not finished giving directions. Her voice cut across the babbling loudly. And you will make a blue one for the boy, but not dark blue, because I detest a dark blue. Navy blue was Peter's favourite colour, but Myrtle didn't say so. Instead, she changed the subject. I'm hoping the children will come for Christmas. I'm getting the attic rooms ready for them. Mrs. Grundy nodded and her eyes opened slowly as her nose lowered little by little. At this, the tension in the room relaxed. Yes, an attic will work, but you don't want children under your feet. But don't let them jump around. I can't abide the noise of children jumping overhead. Everyone nodded and murmured about the shocking noise of children. Mrs. Grundy stood up and shook the wrinkles out of her skirt. Seeing this, the others hastily got to their feet. Now that is settled, we will have lunch. I hope you sliced your sandwiches into triangles this time, Edna. Edna nodded. I've done them exactly the way you expect. As the ladies moved towards the table, Mrs. Jennings caught Myrtle's elbow and pulled her away from the crowd. You can choose whatever colour you like, but say nothing about it, she winked. If you don't draw attention to your quilts, she will never notice. Myrtle winked back, and so began her friendship with the ladies of the Patched Up Club. As soon as she got home, Myrtle took the wooden cover off her sewing machine. It was an ancient machine and ran by turning a handle. It was black and went clickety-clack, as she wound the handle round and round. Day after day, the sound filled Tooth Cottage as Myrtle stitched hundreds of little squares together. As the months rolled by, Myrtle's quilts grew and Alfred's beds took shape, until one day Myrtle said, I think it's time to send the Christmas invitation. Don't you think October's a little early, said Alfred. If we leave it too late, Gillian and Bob will have made their Christmas plans and engaged a nanny for the holidays. We don't want that, said Alfred. You send it soon. So that afternoon, the Britwhistles set off a special letter and waited for the return post with excitement. But the weeks passed and they heard nothing, and excitement gave way to anxiety. Are you sure they got the invitation to come for Christmas? Said Alfred. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the letter went astray, said Myrtle, her face brightening into a smile as hope arose. That must be it, said Alfred. Perhaps we should send a card. It's harder to lose. Myrtle nodded and opened the lid of her scrapbooking box. That's a splendid idea. I've got some pretty magazine pictures and seaside postcards we can cut up. No, not a homemade card, Myrtle. Molly has some with clowns on them and one that says, "I wish you were here," written on the inside. We could see one of those. "A clown card, yes, that's ideal," said Myrtle, shutting the box. They went to town that afternoon and argued a bit over which clown to choose because there was more than one, but at last they found the right card. Then Myrtle, using her fancy ink, rewrote the invitation. "Here, put these in too," said Alfred, popping 2 packets of stickers into the envelope. Myrtle nodded approvingly. "Fish for Peter and shells for Sally, I like that." Then she licked the flap of the envelope and pressed it firmly shut. "I will pay extra and send it registered post. That way we will know for sure it gets there." "Good idea, Myrtle. It will be well worth the money." But the Christmas tree was up and there was still no letter. A reply came on Christmas Eve in the form of a large card full of sentimental verse and a stiff little handwritten sentence of regret. Myrtle put it on the mantelpiece next to the card Marmaduke, with Alfred's help, had sent them each year. I really thought we might see the children this Christmas," said Myrtle, placing a parcel under the tree. Alfred scrawled Myrtle across a box and sat it beside the parcel. "So did I." "Can I put the quilts on the bed now? Well, there's no point bothering the sheets, Myrtle." "I know, but at least I can see how my quilts look. In a minute, I just have to finish tightening the screws." Alfred popped a screwdriver into his pocket, climbed the stairs, and went into Peter's room. Myrtle's knees creaked as she slowly followed him up the steps. In her arms, she carried 2 quilts, a blue and yellow one for Peter and a red and green one for Sally. Alfred had nearly finished fixing Peter's bed when she stumped in wheezing. "You've made a superb job of these, Alfie," she said, stroking one of the big wooden knobs that stood at each corner of the bed. Alfred finished screwing the bed base down and dropped a mattress on top of it. "Thanks." He picked up his screwdriver again and wandered into Sally's room. Myrtle spread Peter's quilt over the mattress and tweaked the corners into place before following him. "I just wish the children were here to see them." "It's for the best," said Alfred in a gruff voice. He shook the bed and screwed the legs on a little tighter. "There's lots more we need to do before these rooms are perfect. No bedroom is finished without a rocking chair." Myrtle's face brightened as she spread Sally's quilt over the bed. "You are so right. Of course there must be rocking chairs, and 1 quilt each is not enough. We might have a cold snap. I will make more quilts." The Britwhistles' first Christmas in Toot Cottage was quiet. Alfred was pleased with his new socks, and Myrtle loved her china teapot. She had made a tiny Christmas cake and brought a small roll of ham, which they ate with new potatoes and salad from the garden, and because it was a sweltering hot day in Australia, they finished with ice cream. "Today is the beginning of a new year," said Alfred on New Year's Day, as he threw the Christmas tree on the compost pile. "I shall pick out the timber for the rocking chairs." "Yes, a fresh start. Anything can happen," said Myrtle. "I shall begin the quilts." They ate the leftover ham, and later that afternoon Alfred chopped down the maple tree while Myrtle cut oodles of brightly coloured squares, and all year Alfred turned chair spindles and Myrtle stitched patches together, and they thought of the merry time they would have when Sally and Peter came. By December, a rocking chair sat in each room, while at the end of each bed lay an extra quilt. But on Christmas Eve, a large card with a small regret sat next to the cat's card on the mantelpiece. "I thought the children would come this year," said Myrtle. Her mouth dropped as she put a parcel under the Christmas tree. "So did I," said Alfie, putting a box beside it. "But it is for the best, because the room's not ready yet." Myrtle's eyes widened and her mouth fell open. "Aren't they?" "No, there is nothing for them to store their clothes in when they come. I need to make 2 sets of drawers." Myrtle beamed at him. "You are such a clever man. Of course the rooms are not ready. I need to make rugs for the floor and pictures for the walls." That year, Alfred chopped down an oak tree and made 2 sets of drawers while Myrtle braided rugs and worked Sally and Peter's names into cross stitches for the wall. And the year after, Alfred made blanket boxes while Myrtle made cushions and more quilts. And so the years ticked by in a comfortable rhythm of housework, gardening and outings. Easter, birthdays and Christmases came and went. And in between all the activities and Alfred's pranks on Nellie, the Britwhistles worked at making everything perfect for Sally and Peter, until the 2 little rooms in the attic were bursting with quilts and furniture, a shell bucket and a small fishing rod. That is all for today. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.